Welcome, everybody, to Radicalized Truth Survives Car Bomb Edition. My name is Heidi Cuda. I am here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. As Jim might say, we are war correspondents and combatants in the Great Information War, or what Jim calls the Invisible War, which I think is very apt, and we're going to talk about that. Always happy to see you, fellas. How are you?
You know, things are popping. That's for sure.
Yeah, things are
Things go
popping.
boom,
Yeah, I know.
not just pop.
So I'm very excited to tell our viewers that our brilliant financial correspondent, Martin Sheil, ex-Fed, retired IRS criminal investigator, is going to be here with us today, and we are going to follow the espionage. So stick around for that. All right, gentlemen, let's jump right into Front Loaded.
Front Loaded.
As I just mentioned, we are in an information war, and the New York Times is still coddling traitors by using words such as mishandled. So here we go. Donald Trump's mishandling of documents. That is the type of verbiage that absolutely offers cover for corruption and treason. And we're going to continue to point it out because it's happening far too frequently.
100%. I mean, the press. Listen, in these next few months, the press is going to be under full assault from people, both from the outside, but also inside. There's a lot of people who either profit from conflict or genuinely, are on the wrong team. And some of those people are in these organizations that, we've come to trust. And we're going to have to get used to, over the next few months, a whole lot of disinformation coming from a whole lot of sources, some of which we may not expect. I know of a few, legendary publications that are platforming disinformation agents today. So, let's be clear. Also, CNN just got taken over by a libertarian billionaire, which just means psychopathic anarcho-capitalist.
Bingo.
Well, I would just like to quote the late, great Hunter S. Thompson, when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. And I think we're an example of that. So stick around. It is time to fasten your seatbelts, and we've been saying that for some time, literally and figuratively. I'd like to talk a little bit about the invisible war that Jim referenced. A lot of people are still unaware that we are a target nation of continual information warfare from both within and without. I'm following Dave Troy's metrics. I'm calling it information warfare all the time. I'm not going to coddle it with just, disinformation, mishandling of documents. No, this is an invisible war. But I do think, Jim, and Jim referred to himself as both war correspondent and combatant, and I really related to that, and I feel very simpatico with you on that. I do think that in light of what happened yesterday with the attempted assassination of an auteur of this war, Alexander Dugin, the war may be gaining more visibility. And honestly, I do believe that video that you did showing the compare and contrast between Dugin and Flynn was actually very key in gaining awareness of who these people are and who the real leaders and, orchestrators of our misery are. So.
The press refers to Dugin as ultra-nationalist, Russian, right? Bullshit.
Alexander He's a fascist cult leader. Fuck that.
He is a genocidal maniac who wants to turn Europe and Asia into the Russian Empire, with Moscow as the third Rome, with a belief system from the 1600s based on old believer Orthodox Christianity. Look it up. It's not fucking pretty. He wants millions of people dead. He does not care. And he raised his daughter to be exactly the same way. Her target has been Macron, but she is a vehement pro-Putin, pro-war, anti-Ukraine, atrocity pushing monster. And she got blowed up instead of her dad because somebody is taking the war back to the people who've been taking the war to them. Now, there are some people who, have speculated that, it was Putin who took Dugin out. I don't think so. Dugin was Putin's number one ally out there, and connected to almost everybody in America, or connects to everyone in America. Soviet, Alex Jones, Mike Flynn named his fucking PSYOPs tour after Alexander Dugin's book. This guy is at the center of the psychological operation that has been attacking America since 2015, when Mike Flynn and Putin did a deal to take America over. So the fact that the war is coming to Dugin, I'm sorry that he wasn't the one in the car. I wish both of them were, frankly. So let's not shed any tears about these people. They want to institute the Fourth Reich.
Right. Well, I will say that it was some kind of direct hit, and it escalated things. And we've been talking about this. We will continue to see an escalation. And Marty and I, who's coming up, Martin Sheil, we've done a lot of threads on the gangland wars in Russia, which we know from our friend, former president of Estonia, Tuomas Ilves. I always want to say Sir Tuomas Ilves. We are talking about a mafia state, and we are going to continue to see, I think, some very interesting events occur. And, it's a direct hit. So, that's what happens in war. And moving right along.
Oh, hold on. I get to throw my 2 cents in here.
Oh, please do.
All right. A couple things we need to point out, right? We know that Vladimir Putin came to power with the FSB bombing apartment buildings, right? I mean, this is known. The other thing we can talk about is, yes, the state in Moscow is effectively the mafia. We know about the street gangs in St. Petersburg where Putin came up. We know of Putin's ties to Semyon Mogilevich. We also know of, Flynn's ties to Dugin. All of this, transnational organized crime functioning as governments is what we're seeing. I think, and this is just me personally, but I think what we are seeing is a mob war inside the Russian government, and this was probably some faction inside the FSB or inside a mob who are tired of Putin getting yachts taken, getting property taken, getting bank accounts seized, getting property seized. These oligarchs, they're mob bosses, right? More or less. They're pissed at Putin. So maybe they can't get to Putin, so they're going after Putin's brain. Just a thought.
Whatever. Listen. Whether it's internal strife in Russia, or Ukrainian special forces, or fucking U.S. proxies, I don't give a shit. Good. Let's.
Well, this is just that time. This is the time immemorial moral, is that evil ultimately devours itself.
Yes. That's right. It's
that
true.
That is true. It's just who does it take with it?
Yes. Who's next?
I've been trying to find something that President Jackie Singh sent to me while you guys have been talking. Did you already talk about how the daughter was actually, did you already talk about how the daughter was under U.S. sanctions for being a disinformation agent?
No, not yet.
I think
in March.
That's an interesting caveat. Yes.
Speaking of disinformation agents.
Oh, so we're going on to my next story. Yeah, it's
oh, that was a good segue.
Another badge of honor. I am blocked by somebody I never interacted with, although I do know that she had to register as a foreign agent. What I was trying to find was President Jackie Singh, our friend who is a cybersecurity expert, who was the lead threat analyst on Joe Biden's campaign. She did an FOA on Pusha, got immediately 26 pages back, and there are various gaps in her history that Jackie would very much like to know the answers to, because it appears to her that she may have been some sort of, grooming agent trying to get additional, traitors to partake in dismantling our democracy. And we do know that she did turn the press into enemy combatants, as Ron DeSantis's press agent. And, I found it interesting that I was blocked by someone I never interacted with, but this is war.
You're on lots of lists with others. Christina Pushaw, just real quick, foreign agent, worked for the ex-president of Georgia, the bad one, Putin's buddy.
Not the state.
And Christina Pushaw is the one who led the anti-vax, program for Ron DeSantis, went after Rebecca Jones, got her suspended with the same people who got me suspended. Like this, all these fucking people are on the same team. So congratulations, you've been blocked by both the controlled opposition and the actual opposition.
I will say that one of the big concerns when we had Nadine Smith on from Equality Florida is that as her, using her very loud bullhorn as a press agent, she began that grooming dialogue, implying that gay people are grooming children, implying that gay people are pedophiles. She did that propaganda. Again, we are talking about an information war. This stuff is seeded. It's very specific. It's Russian fucking propaganda.
Let me be clear about the grooming propaganda. The grooming propaganda came from Chris Rufo at the Manhattan Institute.
Exactly.
Who's the same guy who did the anti-CRT propaganda, made it up, and has written articles about how awesome it was that he completely made this bullshit up and it completely psyoped the left. Writes articles about it, doesn't give a shit. Same thing with groomers. Manhattan Institute, just 1 second, goes all the fucking way back to the 80s to the bell curve, to the scientific racist Bible. Which was created by the Manhattan Institute. Broken windows, which is what Rudy Giuliani used to attack people of color in New York City without a warrant.
Right.
So Manhattan Institute is Peter Thiel's favorite place, by the way. Loves it. That's where he started his companies and shit. So let's be. I just want to be clear about that. Christina Pushaw is Ron DeSantis's lead propagandist, and Ron DeSantis and Manhattan Institute are like this.
And Rufo got to go on that other Russian propaganda station, Fox News, continually and repeatedly to spread his poison, to spread his narrative poison.
Chris Rufo is a piece of shit.
Well, I don't think you're going to get any arguments
not forget,
here.
He is also the one who started the groomer dialogue against Disney. Remember?
Right. This is all part of the same op.
Yeah.
So while we're on the subject of espionage, let's go to word phrase of the week.
Word phrase of the week. Yes, our word phrase of the week this week is, in fact, espionage. And I chose that because I just like old movie posters. Mm-hmm. But what is espionage? Espionage is spying or using spies to gain access to military or governmental secrets. Mm-hmm. That is actually outlawed in the United States by the Espionage Act.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to be talking more about that, aren't we, gentlemen? We're going to be talking more about that.
Listen, in the search warrant that was publicized because Christina Bobb opened her mouth. Christina Bobb, who worked for Mike Flynn in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
She opened her mouth. And so they released the search warrant and the property receipt. And it said, we are investigating fucking espionage. Right there in the thing. And what that means is Donald Trump is a spy. That's what they're alleging, which, is not exactly a fucking secret.
No.
But let's be clear, it means Donald Trump's a fucking spy. And the reason is because he had nuclear secrets, top secret, secret compartmentalized information that's only supposed to be open in a government skiff. That motherfucker had him in like fucking Xerox boxes in his fucking closet in his beach house. So let's fucking be clear about what a spy is, who Donald Trump is, and who Mike Flynn is real nervous right now, and that's why he's got Christina Bobb in there, who might have been the one who leaked it. I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know. I will say that all you have to do is go back and read Wayne Barrett, that great detective for the people, and read everything Craig Unger's ever written about Trump to see how long this espionage goes back. So this is no secret to anyone who's been paying attention, but I think the escalation is incredible. All right, so let's get into why it matters, Joe.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why high fidelity?
So, first story this week is GOP to GODTTT. Yes, that's right. I'm saying they should change their name.
It's pronounced GOT.
GODTTT. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean now they are
not our best headline, not our worst.
Oh, come on. Grand old domestic terrorists, thieves, and tricksters.
Gypsies, tramps, and thieves. Okay.
Yeah, so we got this guy right here, this Uncle Fester looking dude. He wants to call for the death of Merrick Garland, but when people are like, yo, that's not good, he's like, oh, no, I was just kidding. No, bro, you weren't kidding.
Yeah.
No, you weren't kidding.
Palladino's been doing this shit for decades. Yeah. This monster has been out there like doing death threats and running ops and fucking like smearing people and every possible dirty, nasty trick. This guy is just low rent Roger Stone. Fuck this piece of shit into the sun.
Amen. And then, of course, we have the HD20 candidate in Florida, Luis Miguel. He advocates for shooting federal agents. FBI ever shows up at my house, they'll be leaving in body bags. Yeah. Not domestic terrorism at all. And then we have the thieves of the GOP.
And stochastic terrorism. Yeah.
So, yes, stochastic terrorists, domestic terrorists, thieves, because, hey, a bunch of money seems to have gone missing. And the Republicans, for some reason, aren't raising as much anymore. I don't know why. Actually, I do know why, but I'm not telling anybody. Yeah. And then, of course, we have tricksters, and that is Bill Barr wrongly withholding parts of the Russian probe memo.
Yeah.
They tricked an entire country into thinking that there was no there there. That it was
didn't trick me.
You remember for years, it's Mueller time, right? Like I had faith in Robert Mueller until, frankly, his appearance and then him rolling over for Barr's like grade school rat fucking. Like anyone who could see anything could tell what he was doing. But the press just went along with it. Oh, Bill Barr says that there's no problem at all.
That's the biggest problem.
And they let that sit there for like 2 fucking weeks, and everyone got all depressed, and that was it. Bob's your uncle. No one gives a shit anymore.
The fourth estate is no longer holding our politicians to account, and they are supposed to be part of the checks and balances of our system, but they have been co-opted by billionaires.
Yes, but also like this shit is like, talk about the deep state, right? Bill Barr got everybody out of Iran-Contra except for Oliver North, who was the designated fall guy for that whole fucking
and then where did Oliver North go?
Ridiculous embarrassment to America. They put Ollie North, who's just been making money off it for the last 25 years. That was it. And Bill Barr's the guy who engineered that.
No.
He covered up for Trump too. He's a Opus Dei fucking.
There we go.
Period.
There it is. He's an Opus Dei.
Yeah, in light of the fact that you used a retro poster, whenever I have 2 hours to put together, which is very rare, I'm watching, vintage French films. And last night I watched a 1947 post-war French film called The Damned. And it took place on a U-boat. It's a bunch of Nazis and Nazi sympathizers trying to escape to South America. And right like the day before they find out that Hitler is dead and Berlin fell, the main Nazi general on the boat says, victory doesn't necessarily belong to those who win the war. Victory is never final. It isn't achieved except through persistent action during peacetime. Before they lost the war, they were already plotting how they were going to win it. And this goes back to a point that Jim always makes. Fascism may sleep, but it never goes away, and it must be defeated. And the fact that this film was in 1947, it also shows a sympathizer basically saying that, well, now that the war is over, he can no longer remain neutral, and he's stuck between victory and defeat. And it's a most disagreeable position. And it just echoed in my head and scorched my soul. Everybody who has remained neutral on the sidelines, cowardly, not engaging. This might be a time to actually engage. And that is my challenge to people. The people you just described, Hi-Fi, they're not going to go away. There's an escalation. They have moved things further to the extreme right, as they've done on the left. And now's the time to fight for your democracy if you actually want to continue to have one.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't have anything better to say than that. Fucking get off your ass right now. We have a few months, guys.
That's it.
And moves are being made, big ones. And you need to be ready for it. You need to know what's going on. I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to keep saying it. Timothy Snyder says the number one job that you have in fascism and creeping or authoritarian capture is do not panic. That is your job. Make sure you see what's going on and don't make decisions based on fear, because that is precisely what they want.
That's right.
All the fear that you feel is intentional. Just remember that. It doesn't mean the fear isn't real. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be afraid of whatever you're afraid of. But it means that you need to take another step when you're making your decisions and make sure that fear isn't the thing that is guiding you.
Thank you, Jim. That's absolutely true. It's so great that we have these historians like Timothy Snyder and Ruth Ben-Ghiat to guide us right now. We need them, and our philosophers like Jason Stanley. All right, Hi-Fi, what's next?
All right, next is it finally time? And what do I mean by that? Well, the Oversight Committee of the United States government has demanded data and information about online threats against law enforcement from 6 different social media companies, those being Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Gab, Telegram, and TikTok. So Yeah, even though threats have been made against people for a long, long time. I mean, we know they were weaponized during Gamergate, right? Law enforcement and our judiciary, our legislative branches haven't really done anything about it. Oh, it's just online harassment, big deal. But suddenly, when it comes for them, well, now it's important. So let's hope something finally happens, shall we?
Thank you for that.
These companies, the reason they profit is because of harassment, because of anger, because of conflict, right? All of them. Telegram is just Russian propaganda. There's 700 million people consuming Russian propaganda all fucking day long. So if you want one goddamn thing, get rid of Telegram. But Twitter knows too. Remember, the January 6th committee said, Twitter, you fucking knew. You knew because this person, this whistleblower, was screaming their fucking head off. And I also know because I was screaming my head off on the platform with a bunch of other people. Right?
I may have been doing that as well.
So Twitter fucking knows, not to mention Telegram, not to mention Truth Social. Truth Social is 80% QAnon. Mm-hmm. Who owns Truth Social? Mm-hmm. Donald fucking Trump.
Mm-hmm. And let's what's interesting
about what's going on here, Donald Trump owns QAnon now.
It's very distressing because the media continually quotes him from Truth Social. They never frame it. They never frame it as we're in an information war and we're going to parrot a propagandist from his propaganda
his QAnon
platform.
Network.
Yes, well, it's all about platforming and messaging.
Yeah.
Well, there's no platform.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sorry. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay, so next story.
All right, and our final story this week is Russia Ripete, and Monique will probably laugh at my bad Italian, but for the Russian President Dmitry Medvedev opened his mouth right before Italy's election, which was forced by the far right, forcing Draghi out of power. He said that the people in the EU need to punish their stupid leaders who go against Russia. All right, and it's we're pretty sure that Conte and Salvini have both been compromised by the Russians. We've discussed that on this program previously, and this is just when are people around the globe going to realize that Russia is fucking with everybody? Because that's what information war is. So, and that's why it matters.
Ideological subversion.
Yeah.
Ideological subversion. Yuri Bezmenov. Fucking, if there's any two words with an accent that I want you to fucking burn in your head. Ideological subversion. That is the whole project. And goddamn, is it working real good. It's been going on for decades. It takes a long time to build these cracks in the system, to install people at the top of the system to fuck it up from the top down. They're doing that. They've been doing it for decades, and they're doing it across the globe. And unless we realize that the threat isn't this fucking moron over there just murdering civilians in Ukraine, it's what he's doing to the entire world.
That's right. Yeah, no, this is a global war on liberal democracies. Putin does not want the West to continue being the dominant force in the world. And that is the framing that we need. And we continually go, oh, Trump, oh, Johnson, oh, DeSantis. An Estonian leader yesterday wrote that I think that in some Western countries, leaders do not yet understand the magnitude of the war launched by Russia against all of us in the free democratic world, and not only against Ukraine. Get it right. That's it. That's absolutely it. Thank you, Hi-Fi. I have a very brief legal brief.
Brief legal briefs.
I've been saying, because I learned this from Ruth Ben-Ghiat, everything we're talking about really is cover for corruption, and that Trump will run from prison if he has to. And it was confirmed by a former lawyer of his yesterday who said that if Trump is indicted by the Department of Justice, he will run for president. The comments come from Joe D. Genova on Newsmax. So I just want to make sure that you understand these are very reputable sources.
Well, Joe de Genova, I think is how you pronounce it, was on Fox all the time with his, with whatever Judge Judy or whatever that weirdo lady's name was on Fox. Sorry.
Can I just say something?
Judy. Apologies to Judge Judy was whatever.
Yes, Judge Judy's rad. Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know either. They call her a wine box judge.
Wine box, yes. She's got a wine box issue apparently, or at least
sad.
Alleged.
All right, enough of the gossip. I'm going to drop some history. Here's a little history. All right, there was a fellow in Ohio named Jim Trafficant, and Jim,
the hairdo.
Yeah. Jim Trafficant was basically the man was he was a politician who was a gospel revival preacher. I mean,
wasn't
he had hair
Trafficante?
like Elvis. No, it's Trafficant.
Okay.
And Trafficant was a corrupt politician, and Trafficant got indicted, and Trafficant went to prison. And guess what? Trafficant ran for office from prison, and he lost his ass. So if any of these like opium smokers on the far right think that Trump has a chance in hell of becoming president from prison, I would just remind them of the history of Jim Trafficant.
Well, thank you for that.
I have visuals. Hold on a second. Here's.
Put Jim
I'm
in the big box.
Put Jim
in the big box.
Trafficant.
Wow, that was worth it. Wow.
Here's Jim Trafficant. So,
Tell me you don't get Trump vibes from that dude.
Look,
you know what?
It's just crazy, bro.
I'm actually getting Bay City Rollers vibes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Want to say that again?
Anyway, apologies if I have traumatized anybody with Jim Trafficant, but
what were you getting there, Heidi? Holy roller vibes?
No, I was getting Bay City Roller vibes. If you look at the Bay City Rollers, they kind of had that sort of mullety
big
pompadour too.
Thing going on.
I mean, I'm getting upside down crow's nest vibes. That's what I'm
Oh my God, we do have the lulls on this show, thank God.
Oh, so many lulls.
So serious.
All right, get rid of that, dude. I'm tired of looking at him.
All right.
Okay.
So that's it for
how's that for
we want to go to that
back in the big box. Back in the big box. Let's do
back in the big box. Well, hold on.
Intro.
If we're gonna do this, do we want to just start Hellscape now?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Jim Stewartson's Hellscape. Oh, fuck.
Brilliant.
This is
Thanks, man. So listen, you may have noticed my mood today on the show. I am quite turned up, and the reason for that is because a lot of moves are being made right now, which are scary. And I think as I was talking about fear before, I'm pretty tough. I've seen a lot. I've expected all of this. And some of the stuff I'm seeing is really showing me that we are moving from what I wrote about at one point yesterday, I guess. That seems like forever ago. That we're moving from an invisible war, one that I've been, sort of covering as much as I can, to a more visible one. And one really, really intense example of that is this move where Dugin's daughter, and this is for avoidance of doubt about, whether you should be upset about Dugin's daughter blowing up. Here she is with a Russian weapon. Here she is in front of a missile. and here she is in front of a Russian tank. The people who are upset about Dugin's the attack on Dugin are people like this: white supremacists who say things like genocide time, right? So no one should be upset about this fucking guy, Mike Flynn's buddy, getting attacked. Now, as I said earlier, I wish it was Dugin instead of his daughter. In fact, I wish it was both of them. But it's not just those kind of moves that are being made. It's not just warfare from that's clear, right? Somebody went after Dugin, who is Putin's brain. Might have been somebody inside, might have been somebody outside. Doesn't really matter. But we're also being faced with this, with creeping, rapidly accelerating capture of our communications platforms and our news networks. CNN is emblematic of the slide of the Overton window, which is the breadth of dialogue that's acceptable in a society. And CNN is just willing to slide all the way down into the Fourth Reich, apparently, because they have a libertarian billionaire who is now in charge of the whole thing. This fucking guy, who gave money to the Cato Institute, was on its board with David Koch. David Koch, of course, is one of the most despicable and dangerous people in the world, who is trying to burn up the planet in order to make more money. So, point being, we're getting down to the last few months, as I've been saying for a while, and there are a lot of really scary possibilities on the horizon. I've talked a lot about Mike Flynn, but his brother Charlie, and here's Charlie and Mike with their mom Helen, is currently in charge of 90,000 American troops, which would respond to a war in Taiwan. And guess who has been advocating for a war with Taiwan? Mike fucking Flynn. Right on cue, Flynn goes on a QAnon show with Clay Clark, who runs his traveling psyop, which is named after a book by Alexander Dugin.
I think I just want to say it's so important that we tell people over and over again that these are propagandists. This is information war. These are not in any way legitimate sources.
Yes. And they've developed an insulated echo chamber where this becomes reality, where General Flynn, he has to be real, right? He's a general. No, he doesn't. And neither does his brother. We have a complete lack of imagination in this country, despite all of the evidence that we have about the overt authoritarian capture that's happening. We are not facing the reality. We're not facing the fact that this is war. It is a military conflict between nation states with domestic traitors. Until we start to really get our head around that concept, we're just going to keep sliding.
Yeah.
And all I have to say is, over the next few months, it's going to get really clear. And the way we respond to that, the way we deal with it, is going to determine whether or not our nation survives.
I think it's incredibly important for our viewers to continually frame this as part of authoritarian capture. When we talk about these propagandists, these psychological terrorists, we are talking about strategic moves toward authoritarian capture. And I think that that is something that people are still hazy on. And it's very important when you look at like Mike Flynn and Roger Stone's QAnon Carney tour, that people in communities are standing up against it. Preachers are standing up against them. They have to now go even like further to far extreme right locations to even actually have platforms. And that is completely underreported. I know about that because I search his name and I pay attention to what Jim is saying, but they're not going to stop doing it. But there seems to be maybe somewhat of an awareness to how this is really dangerous, and some communities are actually trying to prevent it from happening.
Letitia James wrote a letter to the Reawaken America tour saying, I am in charge of law and order in New York State, and you are promoting great replacement theory, which is what neo-Nazis promote. So I'm very concerned about your tour, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you can't do it. It was gangster, man. It was awesome. And Flynn and Clay Clark read it on the show, like, oh, it's the deep state coming down on them. But yeah, there are pockets of resistance. But it's still largely a submerged war, right?
Yes.
It's still largely people just like, oh, it's weird. There's a lot more conservatives on CNN now. I guess we're back to normal, right? That's the invisible war. That's the important invisible war.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about before we bring in Marty. I just wanted you to basically give us a line or two to wrap our heads around the invisible war. I know I took my children to the dentist. I took them to lunch afterwards. They don't want to talk about mom's war, the invisible war. I'm sure it's very heavy for them and it's triggering for them, but I'm fighting it for them. I think we can all safely say we are fighting this war for our children.
So I've taught my children that, and this may seem cynical, but it seems to have served me well, is don't believe anything anyone tells you until you confirm it for yourself with actual data and actual facts. I don't care what news organization is trying to feed me a story. I don't care if it's CNN. I don't care if it's OAN. I don't care if it's Fox. I don't care if it's MSNBC. Everyone has an agenda.
How about the Guardian? How about the fucking Guardian?
They totally have an agenda. Look at the bullshit.
No, I mean the Guardian was stellar for a long time, and we're seeing cracks now. So, anyway.
And it all comes down to money, honestly. When we talk about the compromise system, money, ideology, compromise, and ego.
And on the subject of money, I think it's time to follow the money, to follow the espionage, and bring in our wonderful, brilliant financial correspondent, Martin Sheil.
Indeed. Marty!
There he is!
Heidi.
Marty in the big box.
Hey, was that good timing or what?
That was brilliant.
I'm a natural.
Okay, so before we get into some of the serious subject matter, A, are we going to have a Quincy sighting? And B, are there any sporting events in Chicago we should be aware of?
Not to worry about the sporting events, but I can arrange for a Quincy sighting, I believe, if you just bear with me. Oh, wait a minute.
Where's Quincy?
There he is.
Yeah.
Hey, Quincy.
Quincy.
How bud? He's like,
Quincy's
Dad, the
got a
box is
toy.
talking to me. What the hell?
What's that? Quincy said
He's-
something. What did you say? Quincy said that he's very opposed to the weaponization and politicization of the Department of Justice.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, can we have Quincy in about 20 minutes? Okay. So Quincy will come back after I finish pontificating about the politicization of the Department of Justice.
Oh my God.
I love how Quincy picks our topics for us. It's brilliant.
Quincy's the dog, man. I mean, he is the dog.
Jim actually has a service dog too. Jim, do you want to show your service dog? I think you have your service.
B unfortunately is on the
No,
other side.
No.
I'm talking
You're
about
Stuffy.
Your Stuffy.
Oh, I thought. This one.
Oh, okay.
This is fine.
Okay.
Oh
We're
my
fine.
gosh.
I brought back my
Everything
happy
is
place.
fine.
My happy place baseball. This is my son.
See,
gave me
our
this.
show isn't so dark after all. Everybody, look, puppies and
That's so
baseball and stuffed animals.
Yeah.
All right, let's
my-
look at some fascists
Here's
now.
my happy place.
Oh,
Come
there
on,
you go.
take no shit.
Nice.
My journal. When I'm writing, I'm happy.
Okay.
Actually, writing keeps me out of fear, which is excellent. All right. So, Marty, we're so happy to have you. As our friends know, you are a retired criminal investigator for the IRS. You followed the money. You're very familiar with the mobby world. You're very familiar with those who, use political means to cover corruption. And let's just start with what happened in Florida when federal agents raided Mar-a-Lago. I think that there's so much happening all at once that I would like you to kind of give from your perspective some of the high concept framework.
Sure. I don't know if I sent you the article I wrote with regard to Mar-a-Lago search warrant in Slate, but that really kind of encapsulates what my thoughts on it, and I'll be happy to just review. You have to have probable cause to execute a search warrant. I think by now everybody probably knows what that is, and the fact that the feds have to demonstrate that there's probable cause to commit a crime, that there is evidence that exists already suggestive of a crime, and that it is likely that evidence will be found further confirming, improving crimes committed at the location, the site of the search warrant. So, and the affidavit, there's an affidavit that has to be written that essentially summarizes all the evidence, all the probable cause that goes into the execution of the search warrant. And that affidavit has to be approved by a federal judge or magistrate. So the affidavit is written by a federal agent, but it's written on the basis of sources of information. And I use the plural part of that word, sources with an S on the end, because it's clear to me that there isn't just one source. In fact, I would tend to believe that if there was just one source, that the judge may not have blessed it. So this source or sources for this particular affidavit likely would have to be folks from the inner sanctum of the Trump White House, folks familiar with intelligence briefings, with classified information, with Department of Defense memos and information, raw data, etc. And it likely is more than one person took note of the fact that this sensitive information was present in the Oval Office, and was be also very likely that some of these same folks who witnessed the classified information or sensitive data in the Oval Office also took note of the fact that those same documents and evidence were present in some part of Mar-a-Lago. That would then, those observations would then be confirmed by perhaps employees of Mar-a-Lago who may have noted that very serious government-looking documents were found in the storage area or in his office, or whatever. So that would corroborate the original sources of information with regard to the affidavit. Now, a judge has to bless it, and you got to know that the Attorney General himself reviewed that affidavit, because this is unprecedented.
Yes.
To go after a past president and possible future president with executing a search warrant, hell has to be frozen over before you do that. A question. I don't want to cut you off there.
No,
I need to know, was Merrick Garland saying, I put my name on it? Was that his, like, I want Trump to know it was me moment?
He said he reviewed it, and I don't know that he signed it, but he certainly reviewed it. He may have initialed it. He's being upfront about that, and yeah, he's letting Trump know that he's not hiding from it. It was his decision. So,
yes.
And I was happy to see
a whole news conference to say that.
He did. And that was right.
That was great.
Because I don't know if it's arguable as to whether the Department of Justice has been weaponized, but I think it's beyond arguing anymore that the Department of Justice has been politicized. I mean, let's just right up front stipulate and agree that when Jim Comey got up and had his press conference days before the 2016 election and said that he was reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails, that you couldn't be more politicized. I mean, he basically threw the election to Trump at that time.
Yes,
So,
he did.
I mean, people can argue that, but I think that's just a fucking fact.
I have to point out that the person who got that organized and started was a guy named Brian McCauley, who was a former FBI agent who sort of validated the Hillary Clinton story. And Brian McCauley was paid $28,000 by Flynn Intel Group right before the election, the day after Flynn met with the Turkish prime minister and got $500,000.
Well, what do you know about that?
Also, I just have to say this. The person who signed the property receipt in Mar-a-Lago is a lady named Christina Bobb. Yeah. Christina Bobb was basically Flynn's lawyer in Afghanistan for years. Also raised $1.5 million for fraudits with Mike Flynn.
I'm glad you have made the reference.
sorry, I did. These are
perfect segue. You made a perfect segue to a point that I was very concerned I would forget to make, and I very much want to make while we talk about this whole search warrant thing. And that's the fact that I think we all know, and most of you viewers should know, that Trump, whenever he can, monetized the presidency.
Yes.
Just by the fundraising he did off of the search warrant shows to me his real character. Yes. Even if he attempts to make lemonade out of a lemon any chance he can. Mm-hmm. And if we just back up a little and look at some of the early findings of the January 6th congressional investigation into the insurrection, there was the Congress lady, whose name I don't know.
Zoe Lofgren.
Zoe Lofgren.
$250,000 on the big grift.
Right. And she constantly talked about the big grift, how Trump family members were getting paid $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 just to introduce each other to make a little 2-minute speech. And that all came out of the fundraising for the insurrection. So, and Trump knew, in fact, he was surprised when other folks outside of his family circle came up and started speaking, because he thought that was just a family grift. So that raises just, thinking about that, looking at the progression of events, it would not surprise me And I just want to jump for a second to Roger Stone, who was on
As we
the
do.
evening of
I'd like to
January
jump Roger Stone.
January 5th. He was present in the war room in the Willard Hotel across the street from the White House.
Yes.
And the rumor has it, in fact, at least one article has been written about it, that he wasn't there inciting and insurrecting and all this other stuff. What he was doing was he was reaching out to potential folks who were looking for potential pardons. And you know, so what do they find at the search warrant? They find Roger Stone's not his pardon, but his commutation. Whatever.
Yes.
So
Yes.
to me, that is suggestive of the fact that Stone was grifting or doing some sales work for Trump, and in fact that they were trying to, for like the last month of his presidency, monetize what they could. And
Yes.
So what else did he do? What did he do with these so-called nuclear secrets that they apparently found? The Wall Street Journal and Washington Post has referenced nuclear type documents that were found in the search warrant. Was he planning to sell any of these?
I have an idea, because remember Tom Barack
Oh, yeah, very much.
and Mike
Yes.
Flynn selling
Yes.
nuclear secrets to the Saudis.
It's very interesting when we look at recent history, and I love that you
I
brought
have
up
to
the
say, I have to
clemency
say
of Roger
one other
Stone.
factoid, and then I'll shut up, Heidi. Is that there was another person who got pardoned with the first pardon of innocence in American history? Mike fucking Flynn.
That's where I was going with this,
Yeah.
Jim.
The day that his brother Charles Flynn was given his fourth star,
Yeah.
so that he could interfere with the National Guard response to the insurrection, and then go on to be commander of 90,000 American troops in U.S. RPAC. What the fuck is wrong with the world? I'm sorry. That's my TED Talk for today.
Do you remember the inauguration itself with
Oh,
the
yes.
videotape of Mike Flynn walking around with a cell phone glued to his ear? He was allegedly talking to folks in Iran about subsidizing or funding or actually putting together a nuclear plant in Iran. And he was looking to get his whatever percent. And that was what his issue was. That was what his concern was. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the unveiling of whatever was found in Trump's safe. Because like I wrote in the article, what do rich people secure in their safes? Would it not be like proof of ownership of investment properties, bank accounts, maybe overseas bank accounts, maybe shell companies, maybe undisclosed shell companies? I mean, what's in that safe? That's what I want to know. And I hope that it comes
But
out.
Donald Trump Jr. said it was empty, so
Yeah.
He did. Why was Trump
He's a
Sr.
good
so
source.
upset about it that he wrote about it and made exclamations about it?
Yes. We should always.
And the next day, all hell broke loose about the big bad IRS and how they're going to be in everybody's pocket and how they're going to be taking audits.
I want to hear you talk
an
about that.
AR-15, you know, and
I want to hear you talk about that.
Did you ever get
I
an
want to
AR-15,
say something,
Marty?
guys. I want to
Ready,
say something,
Fern.
guys, and then I want to address one thing and then get to what Jim just said. So, the clemency of Roger Stone, and I'm glad you brought it up because I believe pardon fraud has taken place. Because when you look at who was pardoned, they are all the continuing bad actors that are poisoning the narrative of truth in our country. So I think that is not something that we should ignore. And before we get to Jim's point about the rogue IRS, quote unquote, I do want you to tell our viewers your comments on what Merrick Garland said about how this is the most wide-ranging investigation and the most important investigation that the Justice Department has ever entered into. You have so much experience in this world. When you hear him say that, what does that tell you?
I take him at his word. I find Merrick Garland to be a very thoughtful person who only speaks after carefully considering every word that he says. So I'm completely open to Merrick Garland. Just the fact, though, that the Espionage Act is referenced as one of the laws that may potentially have been broken here points to the fact that the seriousness of this investigation. I mean, we have a past president and possible future president of the United States being investigated for violations of the Espionage Act. It doesn't get any more serious than that. And so let's see where that goes. And by the way, I wanted to mention another point here before I forget, because, you know, sometimes you do these things and you forget and you say, oh, dang, I should have said this. And I'm going to say it now. I project, and you heard Marty said it here first, that there will eventually be a joinder of this investigation with the Department of Justice January 6th criminal investigation of Trump. Now, why do you say that, Marty? Well, I'm glad you asked. The fact of the matter is the best attorneys with regard to intelligence and national security and whatnot are in Washington, D.C. The search warrant was executed in Florida. You know, that's an inconvenience for both sides, Department of Justice and for Trump's attorneys, even though Trump's having trouble getting any attorneys. Eventually he will, and it'll be one up in Washington. So then the January 6th investigation is being conducted out of Washington. So I suspect that there will be a joinder of all those two investigations in Washington, and it'll happen probably sooner than anyone thinks. Last point.
God damn, I hope you're right.
Or you want to ask your question first?
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say
your last point.
One thing, the head of counterintelligence for FBI is the guy who signed the search warrant.
All right.
that says everything about what you're saying being absolutely true. It wasn't the head of the fucking Sarasota County, you know, or whatever, you know, Palm Beach County,
right. The local PD.
FBI. It was the head of counterintelligence at FBI. Apologies.
That is important. That's extremely important. And we'll see where this goes. And something else that should be considered, there is serious exposure. You know, that's an inside term. There's potential lengthy criminal sentences that Trump will be looking at for violations of the Espionage Act. And, you know, some of these other violations are not all that serious in terms of their exposure, their sentencing. So it's important that, you know, the obstruction charge be in there and the withholding of evidence charge. And also, when you think about seditious conspiracy, that could have some serious sentencing ramifications too. So what I am leading towards, what I always look down the road for is, first of all, how would a trial shape up? What would it look like? And would President Trump or ex-President Trump really go to trial, or would he opt for a plea negotiation and take a plea with small sentence exposure? And
you don't think he's going to pull a Yanukovych and just flee like all of Paul Manafort's clients?
I don't know. You know, he's going to make as much money as he can, fundraise as much money all the way right up until the final point. Just like Weisselberg. Weisselberg waited until the last second before he submits his plea. And kudos to Weisselberg's attorney. That is one of the best plea agreements I've ever seen. That the fact that he's going to just do like a couple of 5 months, 5 months or whatever. But that'll
15 felonies. 15.
I mean, and you don't have to testify against Trump or his kids. I mean, he's just going to testify against the Trump organization.
But the Trump
who makes up the Trump organization?
It is Donald Trump.
You remember how they testimony in trial? He says, "Well, I can't answer that because that involves Don Jr. Oh, I can't answer that because Eric was involved. Oh, Ivanka did this. I can't answer." I can't wait to see how this trial unfolds. I mean, it's going to be theater. high theater.
So that I was going to hit Weisselberg next. So I'm glad you brought that up. But I do want to say that a former lawyer for Trump did say that he will run from prison. He will run for office from prison because, the enforcement agents are so, politicized that that's his only choice. And so at what point, though, will he not be ever allowed to run for any office in this country?
I don't know. Wasn't it Eugene Debs? Didn't he run for president from prison? There is a precedent for that. And by the way, I think Trump would look very good in that orange jumpsuit. I think it'll go with his hair really well.
And his skin tone. Okay, let's get on to Weisselberg. I think these are the headlines that people miss, and I brought this up in our Rad Pod and Chill that so many things are happening. So I want to talk about Weisselberg, then I want to talk about Rudy.
Yeah.
Can I just interject one thing because it was on my mind before? Remember how they inadvertently took Trump's passports?
Yeah,
okay, first of all, bullshit. The FBI at the former president's fucking beach motel getting nuclear secrets does not inadvertently take anything. That is not a thing that happens ever, and it doesn't. They gave them back, but in my opinion, they wanted to make sure they knew all the numbers, all the things on the passport, so that you cannot escape the country.
I bet right now Trump and his kids are Googling. Well, not Trump so much as his kids are probably Googling the internet to find out what countries do not have extradition. And they'll let Daddy know.
Oh yeah! Wow. I always figured he would end up in the old oligarch's home where people still thought he had some juice. So we shall see.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's brilliant, Jim. This is so fun. I'm having more fun than I ever have because I'm usually so nervous we're not going to hit at all our points. Weisselberg, then Rudy.
Yeah, Weisselberg, fascinating guy. He was boxed in. I think I wrote an article somewhere along the line suggesting that, I don't know if your viewers are chess players or not, but that Weisselberg was in what's known as zugzwang. In other words, there was no good move that he could make without getting into trouble. I mean, if he moved this way or that way, so he was screwed. So I think his attorney made a brilliant plea agreement for him. And I can't wait to see just how they're going to testify against the Trump organization, because his testimony will basically have to mirror his plea agreement. I mean, he agreed to, like, I don't know, what was it, 15 tax accounts, the Trump organization committed tax fraud for like the last 15 years. And he is the chief financial officer.
Yeah.
So he's the chief chef.
Yeah.
So in cooking the books.
They had him dead to rights. It affected his kid, and
right.
So.
And I'm sure they threatened to prosecute his kids, and that's probably the last leverage they had on him. But what's going to be interesting in the Trump organization trial is that the number 2 financial guy to Weisselberg is a guy by the name of Jeff McConney. He's like the sous chef to Weisselberg. So, in cooking the books, and so. They'll probably run McConney through, and that so he's not going to be able to bullshit too much because he knows that Weisselberg is going to come in and correct his testimony if he goes astray. So Weisselberg will basically be used to corroborate McConney's testimony. Okay, that's the way I would do it, and I think that's probably the way that they're going to do it.
Doesn't Jeff McConney have a kid?
Yes. Thank you. High five. That was a good segue. He does.
Okay.
Let me tell you about his kid. His kid's name is Justin McConney. Justin McConney was Trump's Twitter whisperer.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So in 2011, as a child, basically, he took over Trump's Twitter account, got it from a few 100,000 to tens of millions.
Okay.
And he was LARP, a live action role play character, a troll on Twitter called Microchip. And
Yeah.
Microchip was one of the worst white supremacist, nastiest trolls in existence. And also, I shit you not, helped start Q.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeffrey Clark. Oh, there's another one.
Yeah.
We'll get to
McCartney,
Jeffrey Clark.
Justin, Trump's Twitter whisperer, helped start QAnon, which led to the insurrection. So I'm just saying, Jeff McConaughey's got a lot of things on his mind as well in terms of his children. Thank you for coming to my second TED Talk.
Yeah. There's going to be lots of stories on cable.
Yes, Rudy.
Oh, I can't wait, man. I can't wait.
Rudy is
Rudy.
He's such a sorry dude now. It's just hard to see his descent into like oblivion. I mean, this is a guy who's going to jail. It's just a question of which one and what charge. I mean,
and how long?
I mean, and they're not going to have any Remy Martin there, or cigars, So he's going to be a hurting buckaroo, And I think that Georgia case may be, that might be the one that does him in the soonest,
And that is something you also said about Trump too. You really thought that the Georgia case might be one of his quickest ways to unfreedom.
I really like the DA and her approach down there. She's not messing around. She's just getting to it, and running those witnesses in and out of the grand jury. And she's. I think she's running a tight ship, and I think she's got a tight case. I hope she doesn't try to, do too much and just keeps to the basics. And I think she will. And I think that's great. Question.
Speaking of espionage, can we talk for a second about Rudy? And the fact that Rudy is a Russian mafia lieutenant, just like Donald Trump. And Rudy was the one who was over in Ukraine trying to corrupt Zelensky, which led to Trump's impeachment.
Yeah. I just read an article, because I was on that wavelength too, and I wrote some articles along that line saying the Feds should be able to get Rudy on what's known as FARA violations, failure to register as a federal agent, and also the money that was floating around over there from Ukraine, from Moscow.
Dmitry Firtash forgot that he financed him.
Right.
Oops.
So, but I just read recently that, I don't know, I think it was the New York Times, that the current investigation in Southern District of New York that rolled up Parnas and Fruman and some of these other players that were involved in the Ukraine stuff with Rudy, that seems to be falling apart, that's just coming slowly to a halt. And, sometimes U.S. attorneys, prosecutors just, they start shying away. They just can't bring themselves to go the final, 2 yards or right down at the goal line. And that's what happened with the DA on the criminal case against Trump. The new DA comes in, this guy Bragg comes in, inherits this whole case, and he takes a look at it, and he's got these prosecutors who are really gung-ho, want to go and prosecute.
Right.
And he says, I don't have a good feeling about this. I just don't, it might be there, but I don't really, because he knows his whole career will hang on if he makes that case or not. And he didn't feel it was strong enough. So this happens. And so that's why I'm glad there are multiple investigations of Trump and Rudy and a bunch of others here. So did you want to continue to talk about Rudy?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple other things. We only have a few more minutes, and this has all been delightful and brilliant and important. When you see Jeff Clark in his underwear, with your experience of putting mobsters away, what does that tell you when you see an image like that?
Oh, that warmed the cockles of my heart. I mean, to me, here you have this sanctimonious, arrogant attorney asshole standing outside of his house in his pajamas, and I thought that was, that was law enforcement at its finest. Now I know, FBI FBI has gotten criticized for doing that. But the first thing, something most people don't understand, that in search warrants, executing a search warrant, the primary consideration of every federal agent who's executing a search warrant is the safety and security of the agents, going in there, because they're opening this door. They don't know what lies behind. They have no idea. There are agents and policemen who have been shot and killed, and because they didn't follow the right protocol. So they did the right thing. And by the way, the last thing I wanted to say was that, they want to take guns away from the IRS. Let me ask you this. How is the IRS or anyone supposed to arrest Al Capone or today's Al Capone without having a gun? I mean, let's get serious, okay? I mean, Elliot Ness has to be rolling over in his grave after the last week or two of this outrageous.
I wonder why they want to suddenly defund
They want
the
teachers
IRS.
to have guns. They want 8-year-olds to have guns. They want everybody to have guns.
Give a
But
kid
not
an
the FBI or the
AR-15,
IRS.
but take the weapons away from the
They
IRS.
want to
arresting
go
Al
after the
Capone.
bad guys.
Yeah.
It's so blatantly dumb, and
It's political.
it's not just political, right? It's an alternate reality, right? It makes no fucking sense in this world. But there's a whole lot of people out there who
right
are
is getting desperate and they're looking for new red meat to throw to their base.
Exactly.
mean, this is really going back to years ago when I don't know, I think it was Bush or somebody ran on one part of this platform was, I'm going to make sure that there isn't an IRS auditor in everybody's kitchen. We haven't heard that, for how long has it been since Bush was around?
Right.
That's just
Right.
an old saw, But
read my lip.
I'm OMG, Martin Sheil. I was just talking about how I became a fan of yours, reading all your early Medium articles where you followed the money, you knew the oligarch trails, you knew where Robert Mercer factored in, even guys like Elliot Brody, you got down and dirty into that kind of stuff. And I appreciate that. And after being a fan for so long, I'm like, I'm just going to look him up, and then we did that epic story for Byline. We're following the espionage. We always learn to follow the money. There was a car bomb incident yesterday in Russia. As we have learned, one of the architects of our misery, was supposed to be in the car and wasn't. And when the car bombs start to happen and start to occur in mafia states such as Russia, what does that tell you as someone with experience in gangland?
To me, this is, this goes back to, it's like the U.S. in the 1920s, when, gangs would fight each other for turf. And what's happening in Chicago, the south side of Chicago, the drug gangs fighting each other for drug turf. And the Russians, since, the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s, there's been mob wars going on there between organized crime sections, and eventually a couple of mobs ended up winning out. The Soltsenevo gang was the biggest one, and they hooked up with FSB. FSB, which is the successor to the KGB, actually started directing and controlling the Russian mob. And, so that actually brought some stability to the Russians at the turn of the century. And Putin, was able then to take out all these rival oligarchs and get his 4 or 5% from every industry in Russia. And everything was hunky-dory until recently with the invasion of Ukraine and the application of economic sanctions and the loss of international investment and capital. Now you're seeing some of the same things taking place. There is a tussle for power and a tussle, a war over control of resources, particularly in oil and gas, particularly up north towards the Arctic, where all this, LNG and oil and gas, where all these new fields are being found. Who is going to control those? Because that's just tremendous amount of wealth that will be open to whoever actually controls the drilling and the selling and distribution of that petro. So I think what you're starting to see is these folks who have been shot or killed or assassinated from Gazprom and Novatek and some of these large and Rosneft, some of these. All these large petro companies have their own what's known as siloviki, which is structured force, is the actual literal translation. But Igor Sechin, who runs Rosneft, he has his own, I call it Sechin's Spetsnaz. And these are a bunch of ex-Marines, let's call them that, that are employed by him to protect his oil drills and his pipelines. And a lot of them are Chechens. I don't even know how you say it. Folks from Chechens. Yeah. And they're all armed. So not only does Rosneft have that, Gazprom has their own siloviki, and so does Novatek. And some of these folks have their own little FSBs, and they're starting to take each other out. And so what you're seeing is stability is starting to break up in Russia. You know, when the big boys start fighting, you know, that indicates to me that there's cracks in the structure and control. And we'll see what happens. But
Thank you for that.
But that's a little convoluted and complicated.
No, it's, I thank you for that. When you see Prigozhin going to prisons looking for a few good men, you know that times they are changing.
Good men.
Marty, thank you so very much. Final word on what you think people should be looking for as they're watching what's happening in Trumplandia.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a whole bunch more of court cases. We're going to see more investigative tactics, more. Rarely do you see just one search warrant executed in my life. Usually one leads to another, which leads to another. In fact, you saw that in the January 6th insurrection with the warrants on Mr. Pajama Man there, and then Mr. Eatsman, you know, their telephones. And which is, telephones are key in terms of bringing together conspiracies. You know, when folks have to, they have to talk, they have to agree, they have to conspire, they have to say, well, you do this and I'll do that, and we'll do a coup, okay? And so I think you're going to see more and more of that, and then you're going to start seeing the court cases. And so all I know is I wish I was an ex-prosecutor, because I could be a talking head on cable and make a whole lot of money, because there are going to be a bunch of those, you know.
One other thing I want to make sure we see more of is Quincy. Where's Quincy?
Oh, Quincy.
Yes, before we leave.
Hold on a second. Is there a Quincy out there?
and for
he was sleeping, so I don't know. He doesn't like being straight.
Okay,
he gets
if not,
ornery when he's woke up. You know, so.
I just have one question, Marty.
The last thing we would want to do is interrupt Quincy.
Yeah, don't mess with.
Well, yeah, I think you got your.
We got our Quincy shot.
Oh, come on in. All right, I go. Hold on. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yes.
Sure.
Oh, dang, Steve!
And
Quincy.
just so our viewers know, Quincy was named after the show.
Yeah.
That was the nickname.
Okay. What was that, Quincy? Quincy just said that he agrees with the Canadian position on freezing Russian foreign reserves. You know, what was that? Yeah. Okay. And,
Thank you, Marty.
Quincy wants to see Trump in orange overalls. You know, that was the other.
Thank
So
you.
here's my final question, Marty. What's the over/under on a perp walk before the midterms?
Before the midterms, you know, I watch Georgia. That's all I said. If it happen, it'll happen in Georgia first.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That's my best bet.
Right.
Oh, Martin Sheil, thank you so very much for spending time with us
Okay.
today. And Quincy, it was so great to see you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Quincy.
Okay.
Bye, guys. We love
Quincy's
you.
going back to sleep now.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry,
We'll talk to you
buddy.
later, Marty.
All right.
Bye, Marty.
All right. Bye.
Wow. Good times. Oh, we're going to have so much to feast on for Radpod and Show on Thursday. We'll have so much to talk about. I'm very excited. Thank you guys for all your contributions. And now, our dear friend and co-producer and artiste and musician, Sean Connor. Part of his excellent summer has been him getting Moses on a Motorbike's new music out. It's already doing really well. The title being Cult Cargo. I want you all to check it out. We're going to start listening to it ourselves as soon as we conclude this episode 37 of Following the Espionage. Do you want to hit play and take us out?
Let's call it. Talk to you later.
Love you guys.